Hi, welcome back to InDesign CC 2021 Classroom at a Book, Chapter 4. This is part 3 of working with objects. When we finished up, we had just barely put in these logos and the botanical gardens, and now we're going to go ahead and work on creating these multi-graphic frames. All right, so we're going to go into our page 4, and we want to place multiple elements at one time. So we could do these individually, but there's a way to make the software do it a lot easier for us. So let's go to File and Place. You're going to see we've got 1 through 6. So I'm going to click Rows. I'm going to hit Shift. I'm going to hit Calla Lily. So I want to load all 6. I'm going to say Open. Now, if I look at my loaded cursor, I've got a little number there. If I clicked, I would just get 1. So I'm going to go ahead, drag a box down from one corner to another. I'm not going to let go of the mouse. I'm going to hit the right arrow key. I'm going to hit 2 times. I'm going to hit the up arrow key and hit 1. And that's going to create those columns. And I'm going to let go of my mouse. And it's automatically going to place all those pictures for me and make it a lot easier. So when you're trying to do like a yearbook or something with lots of different types of pictures, this is the easiest way to go ahead and do that. So let's go ahead, and while they're all selected, let's take our arrow keys and move it up about 6 times, because we've got to leave some room for some captions later on. Let's do a Control S to save and make sure we don't have anything selected. So edit, deselect all. And let's go ahead and try the next part. So now let's go ahead and resize and move things within these frames. So maybe we just want to have one of these roses. So how do we do that? The easiest way to do it is to grab this content grabber, which is the little donut in the middle. We want to make sure we're on the right layer, which is our graphics layer. We're going to grab that content grabber, and we can kind of move it around. And we can also hold the grab while we've got it. Grab out with our Shift key, and that will allow us to change the proportion. Kind of use that content grabber to position it just the way we want it to be. Maybe we want it to be even bigger, so I'm going to hold that Shift, bring it down. So I'm making the image underneath bigger, but I'm not actually making the image that I'm looking at bigger. So I think that one works pretty well. So now let's go ahead to this middle frame. And it's not perfect, but it's not too bad. If I look at my fitting options, I can do a couple different things, because if I truly did it, depending on how it is, it might have come in as a long skinny piece. So if it did, you can go ahead and change the size of that box and resize how it's going to show up. So I've got the box the right size, and then I can use that content grabber and adjust what part of the picture I'm actually going to look at. And this one might be a little bit short. I think it's okay, so I'm not going to worry about it, but depending on your preferences and how it's set up, you might need to fill it. All right, so some other options you might have. Let's go ahead and click on this one. Go to our fitting options. So you can go to Object and Fitting. And let's go ahead and choose our Fill Frame Proportionally. So you can see that it kind of changed a little bit. Let's try that with this one as well. So Object, Fitting, Fill Frame Proportionally. You always want to have that proportion whenever possible. All right, and pretty okay with that. We're going to play with this crocus or this lily a little bit later. So let's do a Control S and save. And let's take a look at images while we're here. I want you to go ahead and go into your links panel. I want you to do a couple things. So I want you to go to your hamburger patty, come down here to panel options, and turn on your actual PPI and effective PPI and say OK. Now I'm going to go ahead and pull this down and pull it over a little bit. When we are looking at images in InDesign, we are looking at a couple different things. When we are designing our publications, we're going to be designing for print, For print, we want this first number to be 300. We want this second number to be as close to 300 as possible, because that tells us that this image that we're using is about the size that we're using it in the publication. So why does this matter? Sometimes people will take an image from something online, not really pay attention to it, and this number will be 1,000 and something, which means you're trying to put a mural into a postage stamp. Doesn't that make that huge a difference when you're making a flyer? When you're making 12, 14, 18 pages, all those huge images are really going to start making it really hard to deal with your publications. So I always want you to get in that habit of watching these two numbers. We're going to talk more about resolution as we go along, but I really do want you to kind of see what's going on with them as we go. All right, so now what we're going to do is adjust the space between the frames. So these are nice, but they're kind of boring looking. So how can we make it even better? We're going to use the gap tool. So it's the third one down. We're going to close this for now, to change the gap in between. So right now, if I change the gap, it's going to change all three of them at once, which is not terrible, but not necessarily what I want. So I'm going to do a Control Z. So instead, I'm going to go ahead and while I'm holding the gap tool, I'm going to hold Shift, and that way I can just do it between two of them. So maybe I want to do this. Maybe I want to just do that one. Maybe I just want to do this one. So rather than reform them all, you have the option of changing everything at once with that gap tool. So now I can go in now with my here. Let's go into my fit content proportionally. And that looks pretty bad. So we're going to go ahead and shrink the frame back down. Let's go ahead and shrink it and fill the frame proportionally. You can get kind of the idea of how it works. So let's fill this one as well. All right. And I don't love how that's looking. So let's go ahead and grab my content inside. Make sure you're doing the content grab or the donut. All righty. So you can create a little more visual interest that way by playing with that element. So now what we want to do is go ahead and add some captions. So what we're going to do is grab our selection tool. We want to drag over all 6 of these items. So we add it to all of them. And let's go into the links panel. So go into links, let's go into our panel options here, come down here to the captions, and we want to do captions setup. So depending on what your metadata is the information that's in the file about something before you get started. This one's got descriptions already built in, so we don't want any text before, so we're going to delete that. For the metadata, we want to put description, and for the text after, I want to put space and flower. Otherwise, it'll say rose flower all at once, and that's not quite what I want. I do want it to go below the image for my alignment, and my offset, I want it to be 0.02. The paragraph style, since it's already established, I'm going to tell it is photo caption. Layer same as image, and we're going to go ahead and say OK, and nothing happens, and that's okay. It's exactly what's supposed to happen. Now let's go back into our panel options, captions, and generate static caption. So now it automatically put the captions in based on our description, based on our space flower, and how we told it, where we told it to be. So it really can automate some processes, especially if you've got to do the same thing over and over again. Let's go ahead and do a Control S and save. So one of the next things we're going to learn how to do is wrap text around a graphic. So let's go ahead and jump to page number 1, and let's go ahead and grab this bleeding heart. Then let's go ahead and do a Control C or Command C to copy. And let's come down here to page 3, our flowering perennials, and do a Control V to paste. I'll go ahead and bring it over. And I want to resize it just a little bit. So let's go ahead and hold our Control and Shift and drag it. That's going to change the frame and the image at the same time until we get to be, about how big? I'm trying to remember how big they want it. And we're just going to make it a little bit bigger. All right, so you're going to notice right now that we have now put the image over top of the text, which is something you don't want to do. So we want to go ahead and do some text wrap. So let's go to Window and Text Wrap. We're going to get this panel. I'm going to go ahead and dock that panel right over here so I can use it for later. All right, so I've got a few different options. One of the first things I can do is wrap just around the shape, around the bounding box, and that's kind of boring and gross, so we're not going to do that one. The next one we're going to do is this wrap around shapes, one with kind of the ball around it. And you're going to say nothing happened. We got to do a few things first. We want to tell it the type is detect edges. So now it's going to go around a little bit more. And we want to do it to the right side. And we want to add a little bit of inset spacing, which is going to just make it a little bit gentler in how it works. And notice that if I now take this box with text wrap, I can change where it's going to start, where I'm going to put it. Oh, undo, I grabbed the donut instead of the. So it's totally up to you as to how you want to play with this one. But text wrapping can make boring pages look a little bit more exciting. They can help you tell your story a little bit different way. And InDesign does make it a lot easier to do this. So we're going to go ahead and pause this one, and then we'll jump into transforming shapes.